On today's episode, we sell a new product.
I'm going to be mass producing these for the enthusiast community.
We change our clothes and talk about it.
New me, new tank top. I went from tank tops to sweatshirts. Back to tank tops.
I make a subframe
And
float in midair.
It's fully in place. That's how you know that it's actually working.
And we make a
We're in
huge
a little bit of a
mistake.
pickle here. I don't know how I didn't consider this before, but... All right, now I don't know too much about jigging, but I know enough to be dangerous. And today we're gonna be jigging up a B48 to E30 subframe. I'm gonna be mass producing these for the enthusiast community, and we're gonna be doing it right there. That is right, we are going to be fully developing B48 modified subframes to fit into the E30 as a direct fitment. That includes no modification to the steering rack location. So the subframe takes care of all that, and you get to keep your existing or E36 or E46 steering rack in your E30 in the exact stock location, which means no bump steer issues, no Ackerman issues. It's a really wonderful thing. So we are now jigging up our front subframe to start. The jigging is only done once. Once it's jigged, once we've got our keep out zones, we are all set. If you remember in the previous video, we actually did put a B48 into my bronze at E30. We had to modify the subframe in order to get the oil pan clearance and the power steering rack clearance to work. We found a solution. Here it is. We're gonna take this and we're gonna be turning it into something that could be mass produced for the enthusiast community. Keeps everything in the stock location, making it a really great pairing to our motor mount brackets that position the engine onto the subframe in the chassis. New day, new me, new tank top. Today we're gonna be making our actual cardboard cutouts that are gonna identify those keep out zones. Kind of already started there, right here. Took this cardboard, put it right on top. You can see here that I've made the outline on both sides of the steel that I've custom made onto this subframe. So I took a factory unmodified subframe and I mounted it to the jig, which of course it fits. And I used cardboard to identify with the shape of the subframe where I need to make my cuts. So obviously I don't know where the cuts need to be made here, but I need to use that subframe, the modified subframe, in order to identify where those cuts need to be. So this is the prototype jig. The idea is that I've got these two standoffs that sit inside of the factory subframe that prevents it from moving left and right, or twisting. Then these guys are my cutting shields, which identify exactly where and what angle to cut the subframe. So if I were to just take this, just stick it in just like that, I can now take my Sawzall and just go, and as long as the Sawzall blade is continuing to touch on these surfaces, I'm cutting this at the exact same place that I need so that I can then take my 3" by 1" rectangular bracket and put it right in that location. Like that. Okay, that's how it looks. And that's what the profile is going to be for the one, two, 3 pieces I need to cut. I went from tank tops to sweatshirts. Now that everything's in position, let's weld it up. All right, so I've got my jig, I've got my new subframe fully welded. I've got everything installed here. Let's just see if this thing actually fits back on the jig. That ensures that nothing is warped outside of the tolerances and that it should be able to easily still fit in any factory E30 subframe location. So I got the dowel pins here dowel pin here. Everything is flat. Be loose on your side. Just flip it over. Okay, ready? So these are our B48 brackets. These are specific to the E30 chassis with the factory E30 subframe modified. We're gonna install these, and then that's gonna allow us to get this thing in the car. We've got a heater hose here. That heater hose has an outlet that needs to go to the E30 chassis. This bracket is designed to clear that with plenty of room to hook up your tube to it. This hardware comes with the kit as an added option. Okay, so now this is on, we'll obviously torque it down a little bit tighter. We can get our heater hose on here and the bracket clears it so we can continue to work on that. Now we'll do the other side and we'll be ready to swap the subframes. So here's our subframe. We took the old one off and we're gonna put this modified B48 subframe on. Now the alignment dowel pins are really the key here. That one's in. And that one's in. And I know it because it's holding in place. That's how you know that it's actually working. Let's get these puppies on. Okay, now let's tighten them up. Let's get this engine in. So as the steering rack is installed, it's sitting flat on the piece and flat on the factory side of the rack. You can see there definitely is going to be an interference on the output. Now this is an E36 rack. It's a 1995 M3 rack. It's 3 turns lock to lock. And this part actually does hit the steering, the modified subframe. So what we need to do is we need to make a little notch here in order to allow these outputs to be able to be routed unencumbered. And then that will allow us to install the steering rack without a problem. So this will end up being another modification that we make to this subframe as people are purchasing it. Now that we've made the necessary modifications to the subframe, steering rack we know goes in. Let's get this B48 in this E30. All right, the engine is in kind of. Still can't get this bracket in all the way. And the reason being is because I made a miscalculation in the location of the oil. The oil drain is actually hitting on the subframe. So the circular clearance area that I made for that oil drain plug is actually not gonna work. So I have to move it and make a new location. So I'm gonna take a picture of it and I'm gonna modify the subframe right now to get it to fit, and then I can make the formal modifications later. Okay, we're in a little bit of a pickle here. I don't know how I didn't consider this before, but we took the engine out and we just mounted the subframe on to see like what it's gonna look. We don't have to actually put it in the car. We know what there's no interferences on the chassis side. Everything's on the subframe side, subframe and engine. What we didn't realize was that we needed to install a starter, and there's the starter for the B48. It's located underneath the exhaust. Unfortunately, that does have a direct interference, so I'm gonna need to redesign the jig and the keep out zones for this subframe, and it's gonna be pretty significant. So I'm not sure what's gonna happen here with this. We're gonna make the cuts as necessary and see if we can gusset it up, and then make the determination from there as to how we're gonna go. Okay, so we've made some major updates to the subframe in order to clear the starter. By doing that, we also had to relocate the oil drain plug opening, and we're gonna need to gusset that as well. But we've been installing the subframe on the engine as it's hanging in the air like this, and I think we've been making a lot more progress a lot quicker than having to put the engine in and out of the car. So we've done that, we've got the clearances we need, and now we need to install the subframe back in the chassis and then the engine back on the subframe. Back to tank tops. That's right, Garageaholic tank tops for sale on the website. Check out the B48, it is now installed. Everything is sitting really nice, and I have not put the steering rack in, but I wanted to show you some of the clearances before we put the steering rack in. It's really tight, but if you use the right mounts and the subframe and the brackets, it should fit just fine. So there is the bracket. That is the driver's side bracket, and it's sitting really nice on the PMM E30 80A poly bushing. Same thing on this side. And now for the clearances underneath. We got a lot of good clearance here between the which was the starter. The starter has, I don't know, 5 or 6 millimeters of clearance there. Even the starter connector has clearance. The oil pan looks really tight, but there is clearance. And the reason it's so tight is because my job was to get that subframe lifted as high as possible, tucked up underneath that oil pan, but still not go lower than the lowest point in the car. And I think that I've achieved that. As you can see, once we put the steering rack in, that the rack is actually just about as low as the bottom of the subframe. Okay, now the power steering rack is installed. Again, very tight clearances on the rack to oil pan interface, but it is possible. I've got an upper rack mount on this side, whereas this side is an M14 by 1.5 with a through hole on the rack, and it's threaded on the top side of the rack. I'm going to take the rack off and show you more specifically what that's like, but this puts the rack in the exact factory location, which is why the clearances are so tight. But laterally, up and down, forward and aft, it is exactly where it needs to be on the E30, which makes this such a unique and enjoyable potential driving experience. So as you can see on the steering column, the really only modifications that we made were on this side. This is the driver's side. This is an M14 1.5 bolt that was shortened to size. Just cut off at the top, that's all. But I have a clearance hole, this 15 millimeter clearance hole drilled out there. And then this here is tapped with M14 1.5. And the whole thing just comes all the way through, and it stops at the right height so it doesn't hit, of course, the oil pan. Also, the other modification we needed to make here were the tubes needs to be pushed in as close to the body of the steering rack as possible without kinking your bends here. It was definitely a little bit challenging, and making custom ones might actually be the right way to go here, but it's possible if you are on a budget to just push those in. But this was an example steering rack that I used in order to do this. And this is an E36, E46 steering rack. This one in particular is a 1995 M3 with the 3 turns lock to lock, but a Z3, E36, or E46 rack will work in this application. So that's it, guys. This is the E30 B48 front subframe. It is a fully custom subframe that includes all the hardware needed to direct bolt-on install. It uses an E36 or E46 steering rack. We've got the M14 1.5 bolt. We've got its tap, that's also part of the kit. The M12 bolt for the other side of the steering rack, and the 4 M10 bolts that install onto the subframe. And of course, just for clearance purposes, we're including a brand new 6 millimeter hex internally threaded oil plug, so you can easily install your oil plug. Let me know if you guys have any questions on how this worked or anything else about your particular application, and I'll see what I can do for you. But guys, that's it for me. A lot of work was put into this, and I really hope that you found this video useful and entertaining. I am Frank from Garageaholic, and I'm out of here, guys. Later.